evening, everyone, and welcome to the public meeting for the Copper Rays Draft Environmental Impact Statement and Draft Resources Management Plan Amendment, referred to as the Draft EIS and RMPA henceforth in this meeting. Thank you all very much for coming. We are very appreciative of having you all here today participating in this meeting. My name is Caitlin Gillerin, and I'm with Panorama. I am the consultant for the BLM. I will be facilitating the meeting tonight. This slide has the agenda for tonight's meeting, which includes a presentation on the project, then a question and answer session facilitated by Panorama Environmental with responses from the BLM, and finally, verbal comments. Then we will close out for the evening. Tonight's public meeting includes an introduction by the Pahrump Field Office Field Manager, Nicholas Pay. After introductions, Jessica Hedden, BLM Project Manager, will present on the Draft EIS and RMPA for the Copper Rays Solar Project and provide a short overview of the BLM process. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the project's e-planning website. Now I will turn it over to Nicholas Pay for a short introduction.
Thanks, Caitlin, and welcome everybody this evening to this evening's meeting. It's really nice to see an additional number of people that are participating. This is the second in a series of public meetings for this particular project, and I do want to do a specific shout out specifically to my team that have been working so hard on getting these documents done and through the analysis process, and also to Panorama for their support and helping us get there as well. Look forward to the opportunities that you have to hear comments from you guys and to learn more about what your comments and concerns are. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Caitlin to continue through the process.
Thank you, Nicholas. Tonight's forum will provide opportunities for the public to ask questions and provide public input. For the question and answer portion, written questions can be submitted through the Q&A function throughout the meeting, but will only be answered live during the Q&A portion of the meeting, which is later on. The BLM is also providing the opportunity after the meeting after the Q&A portion for public input and questions. Through December 19th, 2024, input and questions can be submitted via the Participate Now button on e-planning, email to the email address on the screen, or via mail to the BLM Southern Nevada District Office. Before including your address, phone number, email address, or other personal identifying information in your comment, you should be aware that your entire comment, including your personal identifying information, may be publicly available at any time. While you can ask that your personal identifying information be withheld from public review, BLM cannot guarantee that they'll be able to do so. Anonymity is not allowed for submissions from organizations or businesses and from individuals identifying themselves as representatives or officials for organizations or businesses. Now Jessica will present an overview on the Copper Rays Solar Project Draft EIS and RMPA.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's meeting will provide information and an opportunity for verbal comment on the Copper Rays Solar Project. The Notice of Availability for the Draft EIS and RMPA was published in the Federal Register on September 20th, 2024, beginning the 90-day public review and comment period, which ends December 19, 2024. The final EIS and RMPA is anticipated late spring or summer 2025, and publication of the Notice of Availability in the Federal Register begins the 30-day protest period and the 60-day Governor's Consistency Review. Once completed and protests are responded, a record of decision is anticipated fall 2025. Copper Rays Solar LLC, the applicant, submitted a right-of-way application for the Copper Rays Solar Project for the construction, operation, maintenance, and eventual decommissioning of the proposed 700 megawatt solar photovoltaic power generating facility with interconnection to the regional transmission system and battery storage. The project is proposed on approximately 4,414 acres of BLM administered lands within the Pahrump Valley, southeast of the town of Pahrump, and 40 miles northwest of Las Vegas. This acreage includes both the solar project site and the generation tie or gen tie transmission line corridor to the existing Game Bird substation. The map on the screen shows the proposed project site in red in the middle of the map, adjacent to Clark-Nye County line and south of State Route 160. The proposed 5-mile-long gen tie transmission line for the project, which is shown in green on the map, crossing State Route 160 before turning west to the existing Game Bird substation. Existing transmission lines and infrastructure would then be utilized to transmit the electricity to the grid from the Game Bird substation. The updated plan of development for the proposed action is available online at the project webpage, which we will provide a link for in the chat. Along with the proposed action, the BLM also analyzed alternatives to the action, specifically 3 action alternatives and the no action alternative. Key differences between the proposed action as described by the applicant's plan of development and action alternative include additional resource avoidance areas, site preparation methods, vegetation restoration requirements, and grading limitations. The no action alternative was analyzed to consider those impacts to the area if the BLM would not issue a right-of-way grant and the project would not be constructed. Under the no action alternative, the public lands within the project area would continue to be managed consistent with the 1998 Las Vegas Resource Management Plan. We will provide additional information on the alternatives in the next few slides. The map on the screen shows the proposed project components, such as the project right-of-way, solar panel arrays, generation tie transmission line to the existing Trout Canyon substation, the on-site substation and operation and maintenance areas and battery storage, and drainage basins. The project would be constructed in 2 phases, with phase 1 encompassing the northern half of the project site and phase 2 the southern half of the project site. The proposed action and action alternatives share many of the same components, which include solar arrays to generate 700 megawatts of energy, an on-site substation, a battery energy storage system, gen tie line, perimeter fencing, and a shared fence line with the neighboring Rough Hat Clark project, if approved, and operation and maintenance areas with buildings, water storage, septic system, material storage, and parking. The draft EIS uses different categories of disturbances and anticipated outcomes to analyze potential impacts from the project. For the purpose of the project analysis and for consistency, specific site preparation and construction techniques are assumed to directly correlate with each disturbance level. The various methods include avoidance, where no disturbance would occur, overland travel, in which equipment drives through undisturbed areas relatively few times with no grading, clear and cut or drive and crush, which involves more intensive travel by equipment and vehicles across undisturbed areas, but with no grading, and clear and cut with soil removal, which consists of clearing of vegetation and soil removal, otherwise known as grading or disc and roll. The photographs on the slide show what the various disturbance levels analyzed may look like. These photographs are from other solar projects implemented within the BLM Southern Nevada District. The goal of using overland travel and drive and crush methods in combination across the site would be to maintain vegetation and existing soil structure anywhere grading is not necessary for construction of facilities, notably within the solar panel arrays. The larger photo shows what these disturbance levels could look like during or shortly after construction. The bottom image shows some examples of what the different disturbance levels may look like a few years after construction. Use of less disturbing construction methods is expected to retain native vegetation and wildlife habitat, maintain seed banks and biological soil crust, minimize fugitive dust by maintaining existing soil structures, and has a potential to reduce water needs as there would be less dust control needed. Additional information on the different categories of disturbance and anticipated outcomes is provided in the draft RMPA EIS available via the link that has been provided in the chat. Site preparation and construction methods used for the proposed action consist of grading and disc and roll across the majority of the solar project site, which are collectively correlated and result in clear and cut with soil removal disturbance levels. The project fence line would include raised wildlife access openings for small to medium-sized mammals that would exclude desert tortoise from the project site for the life of the project. The table on the slide shows the acreage categorized by disturbance for the proposed action across the site. Alternative 1, also referred to as the Resource Integration Alternative, is designed as a life cycle alternative, which means that there are components of the alternative that address construction, operation, and maintenance and decommissioning phases. Alternative 1 is the agency preferred alternative. The key components of Alternative 1 include limiting grading to 20% of the development area, restoration requirements to ensure 60% of perennial vegetation density in ungraded areas is achieved 2 years post-construction, and a BLM-approved access management plan, which describes how the access site would be developed and maintained throughout the life of the project. Targeted trimming to no lower than 18 inches is only allowed where vegetation is interfering with panel or equipment performance. While desert tortoise reintroduction is not proposed under this alternative, the wildlife access openings in the project fence line may be adjusted to allow for passive reoccupation of the project site by neighboring desert tortoise, which would not be permitted under any other action alternative. This modification would only occur if the project site is found to meet desert tortoise habitat requirements as determined by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the BLM. Alternative 1 also includes recommended best management practices specific to the alternative that could further reduce resource impacts. The table on the slide shows the disturbance area under Alternative 1. This slide depicts a conceptual design for Alternative 1 incorporating key aspects of the action alternative and a bulleted list of key resource considerations unique to the alternatives. Notably, under this action alternative, major drainages would be avoided. Due to minimization of disturbances and avoidance of major drainages, while drainage basins would be required to meet Nye County standards, the basins would be designed such that pre-development conditions are maintained to the extent possible and to be sized to minimize the overall footprint. No project component or activities would occur within 300 feet of mesquite bosque and woodland under this alternative. Additionally, access through Old Route 16 would be maintained. Alternative 2, the applicant proposed alternative, is designed to minimize disturbance to vegetation and soil compared to the proposed action, but with modifications compared to Alternative 1. Alternative 2A is a hybrid of Alternative 1 and Alternative 2. Notably, from both alternatives, grading would be limited to up to 918 acres or 25.6% of the development area, compared to under Alternative 1, where grading would be limited to 20% of the development area. Under Alternative 2, vegetation would be cut to a maximum of 10 inches anywhere solar panel arrays in a 5-foot buffer area. Whereas with Alternative 2A, disturbance within the solar panel arrays would be limited, similar to Alternative 1 in that 60% of the perennial vegetation density must be maintained with only targeted trimming to no lower than 18 inches allowed where equipment performance necessitates it. The conceptual design for Alternative 2 and 2A is shown on the slide, as well as bulleted list of key resource considerations. Major drainages that provide surface flows to downstream mesquite bosque, according to hydrologic modeling conducted by the applicant, are avoided. A trail segment would be constructed along the western boundary of the project site outside of the fence line, but within the right-of-way to allow connectivity between OHV Route 927566 and Old Route 16. Similar to Alternative 1, a 300-foot avoidance area around all Mesquite Bosque is included, as well as maintenance of access through Old Route 16. Along with analysis of the project, the EIS includes analysis of 2 Resource Management Plan amendments, or RMPA. For the BLM Southern Nevada District, the approved plan is the 1998 Las Vegas Resource Management Plan. BLM regulations require that all actions and authorizations conform to the approved RMP. If a specific project cannot be modified sufficiently to conform to the RMP, then the RMP may be amended so that the project can then achieve that required conformance. For this project, the BLM determined an RMP amendment was necessary to address project conformance with the area's Visual Resource Management, or VRM classification, which was designated as VRM Class 3. The RMPA would modify the Visual Resource Management classification of the project area from Class 3 to Class 4. The project would be compatible with VRM Class 4 management objectives and therefore in conformance with the 1998 Las Vegas RMP. This slide visually displays the VRM Resource Management Plan amendment with the project boundary in red, proposed Gentile line in green, and the designated VRM Class 3 proposed for amendment encircled in purple. The BLM analyzed a total RMPA area of 9,960 acres, which includes an area larger than just the project itself and includes portions of the constructed Yellow Pine Solar Project and the proposed Rough Hat Clark and Mosey Solar projects. The BLM is also considering an RMPA to modify 2 utility corridors that intersect the Copper Ray Solar Project boundary. The map on the slide shows the considered Resource Management Plan amendment for the utility corridors with the project boundary in red and the 2 utility corridors that intersect the project area. These utility corridors include a Section 368 Energy Corridor, shown in yellow, and a utility corridor designated by the 1998 Las Vegas RMP, shown in purple with hash marks. The proposed reroute of the Section 368 Energy Corridor segment is shown in red. The proposed reroute segment would avoid conflicts with other proposed projects in the Pahrump Valley, as well as eliminate the corridor intersecting with the Stump Springs Regional Augmentation Area. The next few slides provide a summary of key resource impacts from the project. Issues and resource concerns analyzed were identified during the scoping period and input period for the application evaluation process, as well as a review of the project by the BLM interdisciplinary team. Design features and mitigation measures specific to the project to reduce potential impacts were incorporated into the analysis and are fully described in Appendix B of the draft EIS and RMPA. The full detailed analysis for the project and RMPA is described in the draft EIS, which is available at the project webpage at the link in the chat. Technical reports and studies that support the analysis are also available on the project webpage. Additionally, there are hard copies of the draft EIS and RMPA available in Pahrump, Tecopa, and Las Vegas. We'll provide the locations for those documents in the chat. The map on the slide shows the analysis area for air quality, which includes the Pahrump Valley Hydrographic Basin and encompasses the proposed or constructed solar projects shown in gray. Project's emissions would be emitted primarily from the equipment utilized during construction, vehicle use traveling to and from the site during the life of the project, and potential fugitive dust from ground disturbance. The project emissions would not exceed ambient air quality standards at the state and national level. Overall, the project has the potential to offset up to 19.6 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents by generating renewable energy. Project water would come from existing groundwater right holders in the Pahrump Valley Hydrographic Basin number 162, either from an on-site well or trucking from an off-site source, or both. The project anticipates use of up to 500 acre-feet of water per year during construction, or up to 1,750 acre-feet of water for construction over the 2 phases of construction, totaling 36 months. The analysis demonstrated that this amount of water could result in short-term localized decrease in groundwater levels. Due to the overallocation of the basin, the project could contribute to pumping in exceedance of groundwater recharge. The proposed action and action alternatives would not increase flows downstream that could result in increasing in flooding. Alternative 1 and 2A would minimize water quality impacts from erosion and sedimentation. If waterways on the project site are determined to be jurisdictional, a Section 404 permit would be sought and stipulations adhered to. Various species of cacti and yucci, as well as Joshua trees, occur on the project site. Suitable habitat for the Pahrump Valley buckwheat, a sensitive plant species, would be avoided, as would mesquite bosque. The proposed action would impact the majority of the desert vegetation found on the project site and result in the greatest impact to vegetation on site and downstream. Minimization of disturbances and avoidance of the drainages under the action alternative would reduce impacts with the greatest reduction in effects under alternative 1. Surveys found 55 adult desert tortoises, resulting in an estimated 121 adult desert tortoises within the survey area. Desert tortoise within the project site would be translocated to the Stump Springs Regional Augmentation Site prior to construction if the project is authorized. The proposed action would result in the loss of 4,106 acres of wildlife and desert tortoise habitat for the project lifetime and until restoration can be achieved, which could be decades or centuries. The action alternatives would reduce the effects to wildlife habitat by maintaining vegetation to varying degree and to desert tortoise habitat specifically by reducing how long it will take vegetation to recover following decommissioning. However, desert tortoise would be excluded from the site for the project life. Under alternative 1, if vegetation recovers sufficiently, as determined by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and BLM, tortoises may be allowed to passively reoccupy. Existing trails that intersect the project site and areas of dispersed recreational opportunities would be closed to secure the solar development area. Based on user data gathered from the area, Old Route 16 was the highest use of OHVs. The action alternative would maintain access through Old Route 16 as noted earlier. Visual simulations were generated from key observation points throughout the valley and nearby topographic features to determine the level of potential visual impacts from the project. For the project individually, there would be visual impacts to views along State Route 160, nearby residential areas, and the Western Springs Mountains for certain proposed facilities like Gentile lines and on-site substations. The projected economic output for the project was modeled with several $100 million in output estimate for both counties during construction. The BLM utilized census data and other economic factors to determine environmental justice communities that may be disproportionately and adversely impacted by the project. Resource effects in the vicinity of the project area would cause disproportionately and adversely higher impacts to those environmental justice communities within the Pahrump and other designated census areas within 6 miles of the project due to proximity. The social cost of carbon was also calculated for the project, which can be reviewed in the draft RMPA EIS. The BLM is using the NEPA process and documentation to fulfill its requirements to consider effects to historic properties under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. The BLM has found that the project would result in adverse effects to one prehistoric period historic property. A draft Historic Properties Treatment Plan, HPTP, has been prepared that includes resolution measures for the adverse effect. The draft HPTP is included in the draft RMPA EIS for review. Implementation of the HPTP would resolve the adverse effect to the historic property. As a part of the Section 106 process, the BLM has coordinated with the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, Nevada State Historic Preservation Office, National Park Service National Historic Trails Office, 15 Indian tribes, the Old Spanish Trail Association, and the Pahrump Paiute Tribe. The publication of the draft RMPA EIS and this public meeting is your opportunity to provide public comments regarding historic properties. Cumulative effects are also impacts on the environment that result from the incremental impacts of the project when added to other past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future actions on federal, state, local, or private lands. The map on the slide shows those past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future projects included in the project cumulative effects analysis. The draft EIS analyzed 2 cumulative effects analysis scenarios. The proposed action cumulative analysis assumes all renewable energy projects located within the BLM SNDO jurisdiction would be constructed using drive and crush and grading and disc and roll methods. For comparative purposes, an additional cumulative effects scenario was analyzed, which assumes that should alternative 1 be selected, then similar resource integration techniques and methods such as construction equipment and access minimization would be implemented for all foreseeable cumulative solar projects developed in the Nevada portion of the Pahrump Valley under the jurisdiction of the BLM SNDO. These scenarios were utilized for alternative analysis and do not constitute any decision on any future proposed projects. Overall, the cumulative effects of the project and other present and reasonably foreseeable projects would be adverse across many of the resources and issues analyzed under both scenarios. However, as it relates to vegetation, wildlife habitat, and air quality, the alternative 1 scenario would have reduced cumulative impacts based on the reduced number of acres for grading and increased retention of vegetation. The BLM has been coordinating with Indian tribes and various agencies on the project to gather more information and initiate formal consultation processes. BLM provided invitations to Indian tribes to participate in government-to-government consultation, as well as invited those tribes to participate as cooperating agencies for the project. Tribal consultation is ongoing, and concerns shared with the BLM have been incorporated in the draft environmental impact statement and mitigation measures. Consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has been initiated for the project. BLM initiated consultation with the Nevada Historic Preservation Office and is utilizing the NEPA substitution process to comply with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. As part of the Section 106 consultation, BLM coordinated with consulting parties on the project, including Old Spanish Trail Association and the Pahrump Paiute Tribe. Prior to scoping, the BLM invited federal, state, and local agencies, as well as Indian tribes, to participate as cooperating agencies for the project NEPA process. Of the agencies and tribes invited, 11 agencies and 1 tribe accepted cooperating agency status, which are listed on the slide. Input and comments from the cooperating agencies have been incorporated into the draft EIS documents. More information on consultation and coordination completed for the project is included in Chapter 4 of the draft environmental impact statement. Currently, we are in the public review and comment period for the draft EIS and RMPA until December 19, 2024. The information gathered would be reviewed and substantive comments will be responded to in the final EIS, which is anticipated to be published late spring or summer 2025. Some tips for effective commenting related to substantive comments are included on the slide. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Caitlin, who will begin the verbal comment period.
Great, thank you. That concludes the presentation. We will now have a question and answer section on the Copper Rays Solar Project Draft EIS and RMPA. Questions can be submitted using the Q&A box by following the instructions on this slide. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature to submit your questions. Please understand that some questions will be answered live during this question and answer session, while some may be answered in writing in the Q&A feature. Anyone can see all of the questions answered in the chat by clicking on the Show All button. As questions begin to come in, I will facilitate asking the questions as the project manager, Jessica Hedden, will answer them. We have quite a few questions that have come in, and BLM is working to organize them. Right. First one. What protections will be put in place for the estimated 800 federally protected endangered desert tortoises that currently inhabit this land?
60 adult and 5 juveniles were found on site during pre-project full coverage surveys. It's estimated that 121 adult tortoises occupy the area of the project. The draft EIS contains the full list of design features and mitigation measures for the Mojave Desert Tortoise. Additionally, the BLM has initiated Section 7 consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service through submittal of the project-specific biological assessment. The biological assessment proposes mitigations and impact minimization measures to be included in the biological opinion provided by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which addresses translocation requirements, construction monitoring, and on-site biologist presence, among others.
Thanks, Jessica. Just give us a few minutes as we continue to organize. All right, next question. How does downgrading the VRM class for other solar projects fit into the purpose and need for the Copper Rays solar project?
Thank you for the question. The proposed action and the action alternative include a RMPA to the 1998 Las Vegas RMP to modify the existing visual resource management class 3 area to class 4. BLM regulation requires that all actions and authorizations conform to the approved RMP. If a specific project can't be modified sufficiently to conform to the RMP, then the RMP may be amended so that the project can then achieve that required conformance. And based on information received during the variance process for the project and the potential for indirect and cumulative effects to visual resources, the BLM is proposing to modify the VRM Class 3 designated land south of State Route 160 and west of Tacopa Road to the town of Pahrump, Nevada, and to shift the location of the designated utility corridors.
Thank you, Jessica. Just give us a few minutes as we continue to organize the questions that have been submitted. All right, next question. Are Parish Club Cholla Cholla found on the site?
No Parish Club Cholla was identified in the belt transects that were used to estimate cacti and yucca densities for the project.
Thanks, Jessica. As a reminder, while we wait for organization of your questions, you will also be able to comment and provide questions using the Participate Now button on ePlanning, email, or via mail to the BLM Southern Nevada District Office until December 19th, 2024. All right, new question. Is the developer still Candela or another company? Who in Nye County is cooperating?
The applicant for the project is Copper Rays Solar LLC. Nye County is the cooperating agency for the project. Input from cooperating agency has been incorporated into the draft environmental impact statement.
Thank you. Just give us a few more minutes to continue to organize the questions. New question. If the area is seeing a major drought when the desert tortoise clearance is scheduled, will the BLM pause the clearance until conditions are more favorable? That is how the Yellow Pine Solar Project did so much damage.
Details of proposed translocation are outlined in the updated translocation plan for the Stump Springs Regional Augmentation Site. This updated plan takes into account the potential for predators, including increased predators as a result of drought. The drought severity would be taken into account at the time of translocation, and the BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service would work together to determine if translocation will take place as planned.
Thank you. While we wait for the questions to be organized, I just want to remind everyone that the comment period is through December 19th, 2024. After this meeting, you will be able to provide comments in writing to the BLM via email or mail or on e-planning. For anyone new who may have joined us, we are in the question and answer session, so you can submit your questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Next question. Will yucca be shredded and mulched? Will Joshua trees be relocated?
All yucca species, including Joshua trees, would be salvaged where they occur within the temporary disturbance area. Under the proposed action, the entire site would either be disked or graded. So any cacti or yucca outside of the temporary disturbance area would all be removed with heavy equipment or incorporated into the soil. Under alternative 1, the BLM preferred alternative, yucca that are in construction paths would be knocked down and moved out of the way of construction equipment or crushed. In areas where there is less disturbance, yucca would be cut down if they interfere with the panel operation, but would otherwise be left in place within the site. Crushed yucca not directly in travel paths would be allowed to regrow under the alternative.
Thank you, Jessica. Next question. Can the BLM describe how they came to the conclusion the basin is overallocated?
Yes, the state engineer for the Nevada Division of Water Resources makes that determination. BLM does not make determinations related to water allocations.
Please give us just a couple minutes as we continue to organize questions. Next question. Were any fossils found on the project site? Was there a paleontological survey like for Purple Sage Solar?
The BLM assessed the Copper Race project site for fossil potential and assigned proposed potential fossil yield classes based on specialized knowledge of the geology of the area and paleontological potential for individual geologic units. Based on the proposed, we call it the PFYC classes, approximately 43% of the solar right-of-way area contains proposed PFYC2, so low potential. Approximately 50% of the solar right-of-way area contain proposed PFYC3 moderate potential, and less than 0.1% of the solar right-of-way area contain proposed PFYC5, which is very high potential. Mandatory solar programmatic design features related to paleontology would be implemented in order to avoid and minimize potential impacts to any fossil present within the project site.
Thank you, Jessica. Next question. Is it true that the BLM is not requiring compensatory mitigation for the loss of 4,414 acres of BLM managed public land? The DEIS says remuneration fees would likely be required for the biological opinion for the permanent loss of desert tortoise habitat. Isn't it the BLM's responsibility to require compensatory mitigation for unavoidable impacts rather than to rely on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to include that in a biological opinion?
The BLM is requiring compensatory mitigation for the Copper Race Solar Project in the form of an off-site mitigation fee. This fee is assessed on a per acre basis and will be used to offset effects to desert tortoise within the Pahrump Valley through habitat quality improvements, connectivity preservation, rehabilitation of disturbances, and research.
Thank you. Next question. I don't like all the water usage. Who gets the power from all this?
The project sponsor, Copper Race LLC, has indicated that the energy produced from the proposed project will enter the Casio grid system at the Gamebird substation. So the Casio manages the flow of electricity for about 80% of California and some municipals' utility service area in rural Nevada, which includes Nye County.
Thank you. Just give us a few minutes as we continue to organize questions. Next question. How much water will be used for the construction period versus the years after the project is fully developed?
Construction water needs are estimated to be up to approximately 500 acre feet. This number represents an upper cap on water usage, but the project may and likely will use less than this amount. Estimated water use for operation after construction is completed to be up to 10 acre feet per year. The project would require water during construction, primarily for dust control. Water consumption during operation would be relatively low and primary for portable water use by site personnel and potential washing of panels.
Thank you. As a reminder, while we wait for the questions to be organized, there are many ways for you to provide comment after this meeting, including via e-planning using the Participate Now button, via mail, as well as email. Next question. Can you clarify why this particular location has been identified, and has there been no consideration on the impact for those of us who will be living so close to the proposed location? Is there no better location?
The applicant Copper Rays Solar LLC identified and applied for the proposed project site. For the draft environmental impact statement, the BLM examined other alternatives to the proposed project area based on comments submitted during scoping. A detailed description of these alternatives is included in the alternatives report, which is at the project webpage provided in the chat.
Thank you. Next question. I believe I heard, number one, that there would be a gap at the bottom of the fence to allow animals to come and go, and number two, that tortoises would be excluded from the site. How will tortoises be excluded if the gap at the fence bottom is allowed?
During construction, operation, and maintenance phases, wildlife openings will be required for the passage of general wildlife. Although desert tortoise reintroduction is not proposed for the site, the BLM and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service developed a modification to the project fence line, including under Alternative 1, that may allow for passive reoccupation of the site by desert tortoise. If BLM and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service determine that vegetation cover different from vegetation density required for the project is sufficient post-construction, BLM and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service could agree to modify the wildlife openings in the project fence line to allow neighboring desert tortoise to passively re-enter the site.
Thank you. Next question. If I dig up a Joshua tree, I can be fined or arrested. Why is BLM allowing yuccas and Joshua trees to be destroyed? I thought the purpose of BLM was to protect our public lands. This project does not seem like it's following that mission.
The BLM is evaluating the potential impacts of loss of yucca species, including Joshua trees, as a result of this project through the NEPA process. Under minimization measures, this would be, the BLM would make any cacti and yucca that would otherwise be destroyed available to the public. Any other cacti or yucca the project destroys, the project is responsible for paying for under BLM's forestry program. If permitted, this will be an authorized use of public land, which is what allows the plants to be removed and distributed.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience as we continue to organize the questions. While we wait for the questions to be organized, just a reminder that the comment period is through December 19th, 2024. And you do have additional opportunities to provide comment after this meeting. Thank you again, everyone, for your patience. I also did just want to direct everybody again to the e-planning, not just to provide comments, but also to take a look at the resources available there. Recording of tonight will be available as well as a transcript next week. All right. Can you please describe again what historical site is affected and the plans for it?
A BLM Class 3 Cultural Resource Inventory for the project area was completed for the proposed project area. As a result of this inventory, 33 cultural resources were identified. The BLM has determined with the SHPO concurrence that 3 resources are eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. The BLM finds that 1 site will be adversely affected by the proposed project. The adverse effect to this prehistoric site will be resolved through the implementation of the Historic Properties Treatment Plan. As part of the construction of the project,
Thank you, everybody, for your patience as we continue to work through the questions. Next question. Why no setbacks as to the close proximity to South Pahrump? I believe I heard 1 mile. This seems to be close to the residential areas of Pahrump.
BLM's environmental analysis considered impacts to communities within proximity to the proposed project from a variety of perspectives, including air quality, noise, environmental justice, and socioeconomics. The closest residence to the proposed project area is 0.7 miles. The publication of the environmental impact statement ensures that the public is aware of these potential impacts and that the BLM will make informed decisions regarding the project's effects on adjacent communities.
Thank you. Thank you again, everybody, for your patience as we continue to organize and work through the comments. As a reminder, while we're waiting for the questions to be organized, there are many opportunities for you to provide comments beyond tonight. You can go to the website that has been posted in the chat and use the Participate Now feature. You can mail or email the BLM. Next question. After the project is over, how will it be disposed of? For example, solar panels.
At the end of the project's life, the entire project would be decommissioned and removed from the site. The project components would be recycled to the extent feasible or disposed of in accordance with the laws and regulations in place at the time of decommissioning. Solar modules will similarly be recycled or disposed of in accordance with the laws and regulations in place at the time of decommissioning. The recycling facilities to be used would be selected prior to the commencement of operations. If battery and solar panels cannot be recycled due to damage or other issues, the equipment would be disposed of at an appropriate facility. During construction operation, modules that arrive broken and are now malfunctioning would be returned to the manufacturer, recycled, or disposed of as appropriate.
Thank you. Next question. If pesticides or herbicides are used, there will be the possibility of these residual quantities that could be washed downhill into Pahrump Valley.
Only herbicides approved by BLM would be used within the project area and would only be used in regulated quantities that would not have the potential to travel off-site. Potential impacts from herbicides are analyzed in the EIS, and no risk to adjacent communities were identified from the use of approved herbicides.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience as we continue to organize the questions. Next question. Did I hear you say that Joshua trees would be knocked down? How could they be replanted by the public without roots?
The Joshua trees or other plants in long-term disturbance areas would be made available prior to construction of the site.
Thanks again, everybody, for your patience as we continue to organize the questions. We'll be moving into the comment portion shortly. Next question. How successful has translocation of desert tortoises been on past projects where their habitat was destroyed?
Success rates vary across release sites, with adaptive management playing an integral role in increasing survivorship of translocation populations in individuals. Through long-term monitoring plans, the BLM and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have vetted and implemented methodology to increase success over time.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. With that, we are concluding our question and answer session. We will now transition onto the verbal input section. We will not be answering questions live. If you have any additional questions or your question is still in there, you can continue to drop them into the Q&A box and the BLM will respond in writing, or you can email or mail any remaining questions to the BLM. As a reminder, anyone can see all the questions answered in the chat using the Show All button. We are now going to take verbal input following the order in which people pre-registered and said yes or maybe to wanting to provide public comments. Please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen and the facilitator will open your microphone. If you are on the phone, you can raise your hand with *9 and then unmute or mute using *6. You will see a 2-minute timer on the next slide, and this will display the amount of time you have for your public comment. We are reserving 2 minutes per public comment. Your input will be included in the project public record. After going through the list of people who pre-registered to speak, we'll move on to anyone who may want to provide input who did not pre-register. The BLM wants to hear from all members of the public. However, out of respect for everyone's participation and input, we do ask that you follow these guidelines. Please stay within your allotted 2-minute time period. On the slide, you will be able to see as time is running out. We ask that you please watch this timer and be cognizant of the time allotted and wrap up your comment. Please be respectful of others that are speaking and refrain from profanity. If these guidelines are not followed, your microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next person. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First person we have is Cameron Mayer. Please do raise your hand and we will allow you to unmute your microphone. Great. I do not see that person, so we'll move on to Ed LaRue. As a reminder, please do raise your hand if you still would like to comment and we will allow you to speak. Should be able to unmute.
Thank you. Appreciate the informative presentation. I was a little disappointed that 2/3 of my questions weren't answered publicly, but that's fine. I think I understand from what Caitlin just shared that the BLM will be responding to specific questions via email. And so to facilitate that, I will be putting my email in the comment section. So again, thank you for your time and good luck. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ed. And some of the questions may be answered here, so do just keep an eye on the chat. Not necessarily all of them, but please just keep an eye in there. Right, next person, Shayna Nottingham. If you would like to speak, please do raise your hand and we will allow you to unmute. Next up, Brian Henry. If you would like to provide a verbal comment, please raise your hand. Okay, let's move on to Crystal Gilman. If you would like to provide a comment tonight, please do raise your hand. Okay. Move on to Amanda Miller. If you would like to provide a comment verbally, please do raise your hand. Okay, move on to Victoria Loeffler. If you are here and you would like to provide verbal comment, please do raise your hand. Okay. Looks like Scott Williams would be next. If you are here, please raise your hand and we can allow you to speak. Okay, next person is Matt Morris. If you would like to speak, raise your hand. All right, next person on our list is Caroline Logue. If you are here, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll move on to our next set that we had of pre-registered speakers. That first person that we have is Lee Smith. If you would like to comment and you are here, please do raise your hand. All right, move on to, yes, Kevin, you are on the list. I can guarantee that. So yes, no worries. You're coming. All right, we'll move on to Anne Henney. Okay, I think I did see Rachel Pintorelli here tonight, so it is now your turn. If you do still want to provide a verbal comment, please raise your hand and I will allow you to speak. You should be able to unmute.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I did notice that there was, you had reported that it had been evaluated that there is a, for lack of a better word, threat to the aquifer, that it is over allocated. So I'm just looking for further guidance or understanding as to how projects like this or can even be a consideration, knowing that our aquifer is already over allocated. It's just such a concern for those of us in Pahrump.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Right, next person, we'll move on to Diane Johnston. If you would like to speak tonight, please raise your hand. Okay. Next person we have up on our list is Jackie Walker. If you are here tonight and would like to provide a verbal comment, please raise your hand. Okay. Next person on our list is Mike Wickersham. If you are here tonight and would like to provide a comment, please raise your hand. Move on to Robert Adams. I see you here tonight. If you still would like to provide a verbal comment, please do raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. Just want to give you one more opportunity. You do have another one after you hear some more folks, but it is the raise hand feature if you did want to provide a comment. We'll move on to Sandra Holloway. I think I saw your hand earlier, so if you would like, great, wonderful. All right, you should be able to unmute now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Sandra Holloway and thanks for taking my comment tonight. Solar should only be placed on our public lands as a last resort, our public lands. I support solar energy as an important part of the clean energy transition, but it must not come at the expense of our most special places. The county is already experiencing declining groundwater levels and increasing domestic well failures. This project is projected to use 1,750 acre-feet of water for construction in an already overdrafted basin, which you did already say. Construction and operation of the solar farm will disturb and displace wildlife, including migratory birds and endangered species. The project will fragment wildlife habitats and corridors, limiting movement and access to the resources these animals need to survive. Solar projects can destroy thousands of acres of prime desert tortoise habitat. For example, Yellow Pine Solar Project in the Pahrump Valley has already destroyed the habitat of nearly 150 desert tortoises. There are estimated to be 800, although your number is so low, who knows? There are estimated that there are critically endangered desert tortoises that will be sacrificed by the completion of these plans. The current plans will destroy pristine mesquite woodlands, which play a vital role in the ecology and cultural heritage of Nye County, providing numerous benefits for both wildlife and humans. Solar projects can destroy thousands of acres of prime desert tortoise habitat. For example, Yellow Pine already destroyed the habitat for 150 desert tortoises. All of the tortoises in this project area will be sacrificed for this plan, however many there are. The current plans will destroy pristine mesquite woodlands, which play a vital role in the ecology and cultural heritage of Nye County. These woodlands provide essential habitat and food sources for diverse wildlife, including tortoises, jackrabbits, migrating birds, and insects. The deep root systems of mesquite trees help stabilize the soil, preventing erosion and maintaining soil fertility. They offer shade and shelter for both wildlife and humans. I know I'm out of time. I oppose the Copper Ray Solar Project for the reasons stated therein.
Okay,
Thank you.
so much. Thanks. Right. Next person, Laura Jeff-Titch. If you would like to provide verbal comment, please do raise your hand. You should be able to unmute.
I believe I did.
Yes.
Great. I was just wondering on the amount of money that we brought into Pahrump to this proposal to have the solar panels and the solar system here. The question wasn't answered in the Q&A, but regarding the jobs that are going to be brought in, as well as the money that will be spent inside of Pahrump. Now, it did say in the proposal that people would be coming from Las Vegas, but wouldn't there also be people coming from Pahrump working on the project as well? That's it.
Thank you, Laura. Great. Move on. Oh. Sorry, you raised your hand again? Okay. Not exactly sure what happened, Laura, but we can circle around potentially later. Okay, next person, Kat Clag. If you would like to provide a verbal comment, please do raise your hand. Okay, we'll go on to our next list of pre-registered commenters. We have Mike Fender up next. If you would like to provide comment, please raise your hand. All right, you should be able to unmute. see you're unmuted. We cannot hear you if you are trying to speak.
Okay, I guess I'm unmuted.
Yes, now it's working. Yep.
Oh, very good. I see that. Okay. Um, I understand most recently at the meeting they had at the Nugget, a gentleman spoke to one of the representatives for the Copper Race project. And he flat out told them they're doing it for the money. This location here, they decided this was a good location because they can tie into the already for the transmission lines that are gonna be constructed. And they're doing it primarily so because of the ease of money, save money. Now, I don't know how this is gonna play out in the end. But honestly, I mean, when they built that dam down there behind Lake Mead, that holds back Lake Mead, there was nothing out there and everybody came in and built a little town called Boulder City, and they built that dam and they did the hydroelectric construction and they built the utilities and the transmission lines. And I just don't understand why they gotta do this so close to this town, let alone 30 some odd miles from Las Vegas, along with several other projects that have been built. And they're literally just dumping these projects, and this one included, this one in my county supposedly, maybe. And it just doesn't make any sense to put these projects within less than a mile now, because it even stated that, of residential areas, when this thing could be part of an 18,000 acre array of solar panels. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So I really don't think this is a project should be built here. And considering the fact of how they said why they wanted to build it, to save money. Now, that doesn't fly with me at all. Anyway, well, thanks very much, and you guys take care.
Thank you so much, Mike. Oops, sorry. Okay. Next person, Greg O. If you would like to provide a verbal comment, please raise your hand. Okay. We'll move on to Rebecca. If you are here tonight, please do raise your hand if you would like to provide a comment. Move on to Emily Roberts. If you're here tonight and would like to provide verbal comment, please raise your hand. Move on to John Hand. If you are here tonight and would like to provide comment, please raise your hand. Move on to Gina Meredith. If you could go ahead and raise your hand if you want to provide a verbal comment. Just a reminder, you can go ahead and raise your hand if you do want to comment. Okay. Move on to D Mounts. If you are here tonight and want to provide verbal comment, please raise your hand. Move on to Gail Rothrick. If you would like to provide verbal comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay. Kevin Emmerich, if you would like to provide comment, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll let you unmute. Great. Oh, you went away. Hang on. 1 second.
Hello, this is Kevin Emmerich.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Thanks.
Okay, this is Kevin Emmerich. My organization's called Basin and Range Watch. First off, on the water, at the meeting the other night, I asked the applicant, Leeward Renewables, how much water they would use, and they're trying to tell everybody in total it would be 500 acre feet for construction. That's completely inconsistent with what you're saying. You're saying 1,750 acre feet. For a project of that size, that is a much more accurate number but be aware that Leeward Renewable is telling people that they're going to use about maybe 1/3 of that. And so we don't appreciate that they're, well, publicly, stretching the information, not giving an accurate total. Another thing is the project, the closest would be 0.7 miles from a resident. I attended a Riverside County meeting. There's a bunch of solar projects just south of Joshua Tree National Park near communities called Desert Center and Lake Tamarisk. People testified at this meeting for a proposed solar project that would be maybe a 1/4 mile from their homes to about a mile. And they have said that several have tried to sell their houses, have even dropped the prices by 30 to 50% and cannot do it. And so this is a death sentence for property values for the people that are living in that area. And I really wish that you would consider that and like an environmental justice issue, just because I personally wouldn't. I look for rural property sometimes. I would not want to live in the south part of Pahrump. And so, I mean, that tells you that this project's going to have a long-term detrimental effect on the quality of life and the ability of people to move out of there. I strongly urge you to look at a no-action alternative. I know you're politically bound to approve these, but
Thank
it's
you,
just
Kevin.
wrong.
Unfortunately, the 2 minutes are up, but thank you so much. All right, next person, and I believe it's the last person that pre-registered, is Mark Henderson. So if you would like to provide comment, please go ahead. Ah, perfect. Going to ask you to unmute. All right, you should be unmuted now. We are not able to hear you if you are trying to speak. Unfortunately, we still cannot hear you. Yes, yes, I see you. You are fully unmuted. I'm not exactly sure. Possibly you could log out and log back in, and if I see you come in, I'll make sure that you get your 2 minutes, but we cannot hear you. Here, we'll try again, just one last. Oh, sorry. Okay, looks like he headed out, and when I see him come back in again, I'll make sure that he gets that opportunity. I will pay attention for Mark Henderson. In the meantime, that I believe brought us through the full pre-registration list. So I will start opening up the floor for anyone who did not pre-register and who would like to speak. If you would like to speak, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we will provide you an opportunity. Let's see. Great. Well, I think in light of not seeing any new hands, we do want to provide an opportunity for speakers that may have already gone. You do get an opportunity for providing a comment just for a second time. So if you do want to provide additional 2-minute comment and you have already commented tonight, you are welcome to do so. Please do raise your hand if you do want to provide verbal comment. All right, see Ed LaRue, going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you. I appreciate that I did get an answer to my question about relying on the 1998 Las Vegas RMP. But the answer is good in that it talks about the 2012 EIS, and it does talk about the 2024 Western Solar PEIS that was just issued. And it refers to something as the Nevada Statewide RMP Modernization Project. But it kind of sidesteps my specific question. Does the BLM plan to update the 1998 Las Vegas RMP? I don't feel that question was answered, despite the good answer that was given. So that's still an outstanding question. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ed. Okay. All right, Sandra, I see you, and you should be able to unmute.
Thanks. I just got stumbled over my words just a bit, so I have 3 paragraphs. The deep root systems of mesquite trees help stabilize the soil, preventing erosion and maintain soil fertility. They offer shade and shelter for both wildlife and humans, especially in the hot desert climate. These mesquite woodlands contribute to local economies through ecotourism and the harvesting of mesquite wood for fuel and crafts. And finally, the mesquite trees have cultural and historical significance for Native American tribes in the region who use them for food, medicine, and building materials. The groundwater would be affected when they use pesticides because all water flows downhill. So whatever river, stream, aquifer, person's home downstream from whatever pesticides, fungicides, whatever is approved by the BLM does eventually float downstream. Thank you all for taking my comments tonight.
Thank you so much, Sandra. All right, if anybody would like to provide a 2-minute verbal comment, please go ahead and raise your hand now. All right, I see Toby Berger. You should be able to unmute now. See, you are unmuted. We cannot hear you yet. Fortunately, we still cannot hear you. Here, you try one last time. Here. You able to speak now? Okay, I will also just remind everybody, including you, Toby, because unfortunately we cannot hear you. There are many other ways for you to provide comment, not just verbally here. You can also go to ePlanning and provide your comment there, or via mail or email. Okay. Great. Would any additional people like to? Oh, okay. Let's try again, Toby. Try one more time here. Fortunately, I still cannot hear you. Sorry to say, very sorry. What I will recommend is the same thing that I told, unfortunately, the other person that was not able to comment. Sometimes when you exit and re-enter, you may be able to fix your audio. Okay. Any additional people like to provide a comment at this time? All right. Oh, good, Rebecca. Right, you should be able to unmute now.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so is this about the solars, correct?
Yeah, I will just answer your question. Yes, this is the Copper Rays solar project public meeting.
Okay, so has there been any like studies how this will affect like our health or you know how close it is to like schools, homes, etc.?
Rebecca, I do just want to let you know that this is the verbal comment period. So at this point, it's more that we're taking your comments for the public record. If you would like to submit a question, you can do so in the Q&A chat at the bottom.
Okay, I did try, but there was this is comments disabled.
Yes, it should be the Q&A feature. I believe it is still open. It's
Okay,
not
and
the chat.
okay, so is that where I leave all my questions and comments
Yeah.
about this?
If you have a comment, you can just provide it to us just right here. You can give us your comment because I know you came a little late, so that's why I'm explaining this. And that will go into the public record. And we can also drop in the chat again, the e-planning for you, so you can provide your comment there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Would anybody else like to provide a verbal comment? If so, please do raise your hand. Right. Robert Adams, I see you, and you should be able to speak now.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Let's reduce the impact of these solar projects by dispersing them, limiting the size, and let's not put them right next to one another. Look at it. Unfortunately, we're looking at this as one project at a time. And the impacts, not to one project, but the impact is the cumulative plants all put together, one by one, side by side. Everything from 160 all the way south to the California line is going to be one just large, ugly sea of solar panels. It shouldn't be. And let's disperse the projects in such a way. In other words, it's putting them all right next to one another just doesn't work. But Valley Electric here in Pahrump did an excellent job in designing a solar plant up off of Simpkins. It's because of the topography, it's not really seen except on certain times of the day, twice a day, where the sun's glaring on it. But and it's not too big. In other words, it's easy enough to get around. And there's not another one right next to it. And that's the key. That we've got yellow pine. Let's go another mile before we approve another one. Keep them separated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Great. Would anybody else like to provide a 2-minute verbal comment? If so, go ahead and raise your hand. In case there were any other later attendees, you can provide questions in the Q&A chat, Q&A feature at the bottom. All right, Kevin, I see you. All right, you should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, thank you again. From your answer in the question chat, if I understood correctly, you haven't done physical paleontological surveys. Much of the Copper Age site is composed of Badlands Formation, which are approximately the same age as what's over there in the Tule Springs Fossil Beds National Monument. And some folks know, some don't, but our organization, particularly one of the members, Laura Cunningham, found a mammoth tooth fossil on the site of the Purple Sage Energy Center. There have been other megafauna fossils found in the South Pahrump Valley in those formations, particularly at Cathedral Canyon and Stump Spring. I think it's an oversight, and I would like to recommend that the BLM require Leeward Renewables to do a paleontological survey for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. On to the next person. If there is somebody that would like to provide verbal comment, go ahead and raise your hand. It looks like those were all the people that asked to provide a verbal comment at this time. We will be here until 8 p.m. so there is more opportunities. And I also wanted to remind everybody here that the public comment period is open until December 19th, 2024, and you can comment via email, sending in a hard copy, comment, or letter, or using the Participate Now button on the BLM website, which we have posted a few times in the chat for everybody. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Nicholas Pay to do a brief closeout. But as a reminder, like I said, we will be here until 8 p.m. So Nicholas Pay, whenever you're ready to do the closeout. And as you can see here, this has the additional comment options that I did just mention, but just to help everybody out, we are showing it here on the screen, and this will be here until 8 p.m. So you can always go ahead and write down this information. We have the e-planning, the email option, as well as mail option. Okay, Nicholas Pay.
Thanks, Caitlin. Do appreciate everybody's comments tonight. We are still actively working on answering a number of the questions that were submitted in the question and answer session. And so I do want to make sure that everybody is aware that this meeting was recorded and it will be provided on ePlanning following the conclusion of this meeting. But I do really appreciate the participation. It's good to be able to get questions and comments that take us an opportunity to take a hard look and look at the project a little harder. So with that, again, I thank you for this evening and thank you for taking the time to be here with us. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
do see that somebody new has joined, so I did just want to say that we are here until 8 p.m. To take any additional verbal comments, if there are any. You can go ahead and raise your hand and we can take that comment. Additionally, on this slide that you see here, it does provide the other opportunities for verbal for comment on this Copper Rays Solar project, including the website, email, or also via mail. Thank you. All right, Mark. Let's see if you can unmute yourself.
I think that worked this time.
It did. We can hear you.
Thank you very much. It took me a while to straighten out my technical difficulties.
Yeah, no problem. We'll just go back one slide just so that you can see the 2-minute timer. All right.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment on the Old Spanish National Historic Trail is mentioned several times as somewhat of an issue in the draft EIS. But there's no map that I could find, as is typical for special designations, showing the relationship of the Old Spanish National Historic Trail to the project area. And so I would strongly urge in the revisions of the final EIS that the Old Spanish National Historic Trail as a special legal designation be illustrated, since it is mentioned in the text. And I would like to verify that the location that's mentioned being more than 5 miles away from the project area. I don't know whether that's the center line, but the BLM has a responsibility to establish a management corridor for the Old Spanish National Historic Trail. So I would like the final EIS to illustrate the relationship of the management corridor of the Old Spanish National Historic Trail to the project area. Furthermore, I think the visual resource information may not give us a full view of the impact on the Old Spanish National Historic Trail. The reflectivity of solar arrays is an issue, and the Old Spanish National Historic Trail was designated to protect the viewshed of the trail, not an historic property. So those are the comments I wanted to make earlier, and I thank you very much for letting me come back in. I'm glad I caught you before the end of the meeting, and I intend to put these comments in writing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Glad we were able to receive that comment as well. Just as a reminder for those still here, that this slide here that we just re-put back up does provide additional opportunity for comment. So thank you, everybody. We will be here until 8. Thank you, everybody, for attending this evening. This concludes the public meeting for the Copper Race Solar Project. As a reminder, you can continue to submit comments through December 19th, 2024, using any of the options on this screen. Thank you, everybody.